everyone, I'm Jan Kabili, and I'm really excited to welcome you to episode 9 of the Photoshop Show, the G+ hangout where we talk about everything Photoshop and Lightroom. Now, I want you to do something for me. Just imagine that you had an entire week to do absolutely nothing but focus on your photography. And you get to do that in a stunning place high up in the Rocky Mountains, just a kick away from the cultural capital of the West, Aspen, Colorado. And you get to do that under the guidance of some of the top photographers in the world. And you get to do it with a whole bunch of other photographers and other artists as well. Imagine you had a whole week to do that just for yourself. Well, if that sounds good to you, you're going to love this show, because tonight we have with us the artistic director of Anderson Ranch Art Center, Andrea Wallace. And she's going to tell us all about how you can do that at Anderson Ranch Art Center in Aspen. And Andrea Wallace is also a great fine art photographer of her own right, and she's going to show us some of her work and let us know how she does it. So that is the Photoshop Show. Before we get started, I'd like everybody down in our panel to introduce themselves to you, starting with my co-host, Ron Clifford.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ron Clifford. I'm a photographer, community builder, and I work with the G+ mentorship program here on G+. Most of my work can be found on G+, but I also have a website at ronclifford.com. Welcome.
So, who else do we have down there? Who's next to you, Ron?
On my screen, it's Mel Pifer. Hi, Mel.
Hi, Ron. Hey, guys. I am Mel Pifer. I'm a photographer based in the Minneapolis area. On top of that, I also teach art to elementary and preschool age kids on a pretty daily basis. So I'm usually painted while taking pictures and trying not to paint my camera as well. So you can definitely find me on Google+, Mel Pifer.
Cool. And what kind of photographs do you concentrate on?
You know, I'm all over the place. Right now I'm loving spring and I'm loving my flowers. I've been calling them my drama flowers, very dark, very light. So otherwise I'm all over the place. I need to get back to street shooting. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Is that your work on the wall behind you?
It is. I'm actually working to mount photos on canvas board. These are actually all my prototypes, my trial and error. So they're all just hanging back there.
Sweet. Cool. Well, I'm glad you came.
Thanks for inviting me.
I'm on the other side of you. Isabelle Fortin. I am on G+ since about November, and I'm an art director for a sports licensing company in the U.S., but I work from Canada, Montreal, Canada. So working from home for many years now, seven years. So G+ is kind of my lifeline to other humans. So basically sports licensing is with the major leagues, sports, MLB, NHL, NFL. I also co-curate Blast from the Past and Movie Mashup Tuesday, which was on today, and for the first time I had no time to actually do anything, so I feel kind of bad, but
you can't do everything all the time.
You can't do everything, and there's something every day for people to do, so it's easy to get wrapped up in there. So Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And over on the far left is Andrea Wallace, our special guest. Andrea, tell us some stuff about you and what you do, and what does that fancy title you have mean?
I'm the artistic director for photography and digital media at Anderson Ranch Art Center, and we're located about 8 miles outside of Aspen, Colorado. And I'm also a photographer, and I do mostly documentary work, documentary photography, and documentary film.
Cool. Now, Anderson Ranch Art Center, if people want to see the website for that organization, where do they look?
They can go to andersonranch.org, and that's our main website.
And how do you spell Anderson? O-N?
ANDERSONRANCH.org.
Cool. Well, we'll maybe get a chance to look at that a little bit later when you're presenting.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing something about the ranch and your work. But first, as we always do on the Photoshop Show, I want to do a little tutorial, because I know some people come here specifically to learn some Photoshop and Lightroom. And the idea that I had for this week is to talk to you about how to fix your Lightroom messes. The reason that I thought of that is that I had a client this week who called me and said, "Oh my God, will you please come over? I have got to get someone to help me untangle all my Lightroom photos," because she couldn't she just didn't know where she had things and which photo was which, and she had duplicates, and she ended up in a big mess. So I began to think about it, and I realized she's probably not the only one. I think a lot of people get in trouble with Lightroom in terms of organizing their photos. And I have a few ideas about how you can avoid getting in that sort of situation. So I'm going to screen share and give you a few tips about how to keep things organized so you don't get in a mess in Lightroom. Has anybody there had any problems with organizing in Lightroom?
Yeah. I have problems with organizing in general. So.
Me too.
Actually, Lightroom is excellent for people who have trouble organizing as long as they stick to it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is actually sticking to the process.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So can you see my Lightroom library right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's see. Lightroom gives us all kinds of features for organizing officially. Like if you look over on the left, there are collections, and over on the right of the library module, there are keywords. There's a real sophisticated search engine with filters for all different kinds of things. But, I think really the most important thing, even if you don't ever keyword or use a collection or do any of the Lightroom ways of organizing, is to have a simple file and folder system on your hard drive that you start with and that Lightroom will be cognizant of. And as you guys said, the key to that is to be consistent about whatever file and folder system you decide on. And I think that's kind of hard for people. So I wanted to show you how I would set up a Lightroom catalog in terms of organizing the underlying folders, to give you some idea about how you might do the same thing. And by the way, I'm using photos in this exercise from my partner, John Lorenz, and you can maybe see from these thumbnails, he is an amazing landscape photographer. And so I wanted to thank him. Again, that's John Lorenz. He's here on Google Plus too. Okay, so anyway, let me zoom in a little bit closer so that you can see what I have going on in my folders panel over here on the left side of the library module. So you may be able to see that I have all my photos that are in this catalog on a single hard drive. It's the one called Macintosh hard drive in my case. And I recommend that you do that before you get started with Lightroom, you gather all your photos onto one drive. Probably it's going to be an external drive. You can buy maybe a large external drive. And I've organized the photos in this catalog in terms of dates because, for me at least, I tend to remember what I took when more than, remembering subject matter or who's in the photos. I have my life organized kind of by year. And do you guys think about it the same way?
I do.
I think a lot of people do. It's just an easy way to remember. So you don't have to do it this way, but so what I have is for each year I have a folder, and these are actual folders on my hard drive that you can see reflected in the folders panel in Lightroom. And then inside of each folder, I have a subfolder for each shoot. So, and those subfolders I name by the date, and then I usually put the location where the shoot took place, and then a subject matter word that makes sense to me, that will trigger my memory of what that is. So here are some shots of foliage in Garner Creek taken in 2006. And here are some cottonwoods taken in the San Luis Valley in 2006. Some abstracts of ice, and so on. So that, I think, is one of the simplest ways that you can organize your photos on your hard drive even before you start thinking about Lightroom. Now, once you've got folders, at least you started to get a folder system like that going on your hard drive, then you'll want to start importing all those existing photos into a Lightroom catalog. And here is the big key to the whole procedure so that you don't get a tangled mess. And that is, once you've started importing some photos into Lightroom, any changes you make to your folder system, whether that's moving folders around, changing the names of folders, creating new folders, all of that should be done from inside of Lightroom's library, right where I am here in the folders panel, instead of what I think most people want to do, which is go out to their hard drive and make changes out there. Because if you do make changes on your hard drive and not inside of Lightroom, Lightroom won't know what you've done, and it won't be able to keep track of your photos. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's the general principle. Now let's see, like, well, how would you put that into practice? What are some ways that you might want to reorganize or change things about your folders here in the Folders panel? Well, a simple thing is you might want to move some folders around. So, for example, if I were to look in my 2009 year folder, I see I've got a couple of mislocated subfolders. Here's some pictures I took, or that John took in 2010, and they should be in the 2010 folder. And here's another subfolder of 2010 photos. And so what I'm going to do is just select both of those subfolders. I'm holding down the Shift key, and I can select both subfolders from 2010. And then I'll drag on either one of those down into my 2010 year folder. And that moves the subfolders with all of their contents, all the photos. And so Lightroom gives me this warning, hey, if you do this, you're not only making a change in Lightroom, but you're actually moving the photos around on your hard drive. That's what this means, moving files on disk. Good, that's good. That's what I want to do. So I'll click Move. And in just a second, those two folders are where they should be inside of the 2010 folder. And if I went out to my hard drive in the Finder or the Explorer, I would see the same thing. You understand that much?
Yeah. Yep, that makes great sense.
Cool. But if I did that move outside of Lightroom, if I did it in my Finder or in my Explorer, then I would end up with a mess in Lightroom. I would just get question marks on these folders in Lightroom. And in another show later, I'll show you how you can fix it if you do get question marks. But that's why you want to do it from here in Lightroom, so Lightroom can keep track. So that's kind of an easy example. Now let's do something just a little bit, one step harder. And that is, let's say that, give me one second, I have to find my example here.
It always happens when you're live.
I know, it's horrible. Oh, here we go. So here I have some photos in a folder. And let me back off so you can see. These are photos that John took in this beautiful valley in Colorado, the San Luis Valley. And I'll make this a little bigger so you can see. You can see that most of the photos look like they're from the same shoot, except for this one at the end, the wildflowers. Those were actually taken in another place in Crested Butte in Colorado. And this photo is in the wrong folder. So now, what would you do if that happens to you? Well, you just select this photo, or if you have multiple photos, you shift-click to select multiple photos and drag the photo where it should go. And same as the folders. So if I zoom back in, let me get it so you can see this a little better. They're never going to make monitors big enough to show everything, are they?
No.
Doesn't matter what they do. Okay, so if I want to take the wildflowers and drag them into the Crested Butte Wildflowers folder, I should do it from inside Lightroom by just selecting it here in the Library module and dragging to the folder where the photo should be and releasing my mouse. Again, I get the warning about moving a file on disk. And if you get sick of looking at this warning, you can click, don't show me that stupid thing again. I get it.
Yeah.
And I think the warning is kind of too scary. It says, this cannot be undone. Well, that's kind of not true. And this poor lady that I was helping the other day, she said, oh, I'm so scared when I see that. I don't know what to do. All it means is there's no undo command. But, of course, you could move a photo around between folders again, just the way I'm doing now. So it's not true. It can't be undone. Anyway, we're going to move that photo from the Photos folder into the Wildflowers folder. And it should be down there now if I go all the way down, somewhere in here. So that's how simple it is to move photos around. I think it was this one of these down here. So that's pretty easy, right?
Right.
Okay. One step further. Let's say I have something like, see this folder here that says 2011 San Luis Highway. Now, that should be in a 2011 yearly folder. But guess what? I don't have one. Do you see that? I have 2006, 2007, 8, 9, 10, but I didn't happen to make the folder for 2011 yet. So here's how you can make a new folder right inside the Folders panel in Lightroom, and it'll make the folder on your hard drive. How do you do it? Well, first thing is, I want this new folder to be at the same level in the file hierarchy as all the other years. Well, I don't know where that is. And this is something about the Lightroom Folders panel that always messes people up. Where are these folders, 2006, 7, 8, 9? Does anybody know how to find out where they are?
I have no idea. I have no idea. So.
Nobody does. It's really.
I have a good idea.
What do you think, Ron?
I always do this for images, but not folders. But can you right-click and show folder on desktop, or show folder in Explorer, or show folder? It depends if you're on a Mac or not.
You could do that, but that would take you out of Lightroom and take you out to your Finder or Explorer, and I want to be able to work right here in the Folders panel. So look at this little trick. If I click on, or right-click on any one of these year folders, I get a contextual menu, and one of the commands here is Show Parent Folder. And if I click that, in this hierarchy of folders, I now can see the folder one level up. Does that make sense?
That should be default.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason it's not the default. Let me do it again, and I think you'll start to see why. If I click on this folder one level up, the one I'd called Lightroom Photos, right-click, show the parent folder of that, it's my desktop. And I could keep going, but the problem is, if that happened, then if Lightroom showed you every single folder in this long hierarchy, you'd run out of room.
Yeah.
And it would become unwieldy and not usable. So that's why the default is not to show you the parent folders.
And I guess also the parent folders may not be in your library, so there's really no point in having to show them.
No, they will be in your library. As long as I've imported any photos into one of these subfolders, theoretically, the parent folder is also in the library.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just not shown here in order to make the folders panel workable. Otherwise, it'd be too long. So the point is, whenever you're trying to kind of deconstruct your folder system from inside of Lightroom, start right-clicking top-level folders and saying, here, I can do it here, show the parent folder until you get to the top of the chain, and then you'll have a better idea of what's happening here. The other reason I did that here is I want to make a folder inside of Lightroom Photos so that it's on the same level as the other year folders. Understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll right-click on Lightroom Photos folder, and I'll choose Create Folder inside, and it even says the name of this parent folder, Lightroom Photos. And here, it lets me make a new folder. So I'll call this one, 2011, right? And I'll click Create. And now I have this empty 2011 folder inside of my Lightroom Photos folder at the same level as all the other years. And I have no photos in that folder yet, but I'm going to drag this subfolder of the San Luis Highway shots into my 2011 folder, and we're ready to go. Now, tell me if you didn't understand any of that, because it's a lot of blah, blah, folders, files, folders.
Perfect.
Got it?
I get it.
I think I got it too. That's great.
Excellent. I know it's not thrilling and exciting and sexy, but this is really what goes on day to day in the in the library module. One more thing I wanted to show you here you may not know about. Notice that 2007 is kind of grayed out, and the number on the right, which tells you how many photos are in this folder, says 0. Now, I know that's not right. I know that John took some photos in 2007. And if I were to look out on my hard drive and look in the 2007 folder that's there, I know there are photos in there. I know because I looked already. But I'm not going to subject you to going to look with me. Take my word for it. So in this case, I need to import into this folder those photos. And for some reason, as I was organizing, I forgot to import my 2007s. So here is a way that you can quickly get this folder up to speed without having to go into the big, hard-to-deal-with import dialog box in Lightroom. Just click on a folder that appears in your Folders panel and choose Synchronize Folder. And then you get this big, scary-looking warning. And usually I just leave everything checked. I don't even want to see my import dialog box because it's too complicated. All I want to do is synchronize the folder as it appears in Lightroom with this same folder that's living on my hard drive. So I'll click Synchronize, and Lightroom goes and looks out there, and indeed, it found that there are 3 photos in that folder on my hard drive. Here they are, 3 photos that John took in the year 2007. Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So synchronizing folders.
It took me a while to figure that one out, but once I did, suddenly all the work I had done came back.
And even if I look inside the 2007 folder, it brought in the subfolder that contains these photos. So I love synchronizing folders. It's a really quick way to get everything back the way it should be. Like when I helped this lady, I found that she had a whole bunch of folders that just weren't in here. They were in our hard drive where they should be, but they hadn't come into Lightroom. So those are the things that I wanted to show you tonight. Now, there's a lot more about organizing folders and files, like what to do if you get a missing folder. And I can show you that some other time because I don't want to take up too much time tonight. But I hope that that helped you to kind of avoid the problem of missing folders and missing files by organizing, you know, from the get-go in a way that makes sense and staying with it consistently. And if you need to make changes, doing those from within Lightroom from the folders panel in the library module. Great. Anything else I can help with before I unscreen share?
No, Jan, that was great.
That was great. And we're so fortunate to have the recording. We can always go back and take a look at it just to make sure we got it.
Oh, good.
I'm a Lightroom user, and I can't say enough about it in organizing photographs. I used to just be a Windows Explorer organizer, and that was completely impossible because I have a PC. And when I had got Lightroom and learned just to use Lightroom to stay organized instead of going outside of Lightroom, it really, really simplified my workflow.
That's good. You know, I really urge people to do it. It's a pain in the you-know-what to learn it, but once you learn it, oh, it changes your life. I don't know about you, but I have in my main catalog something like 70,000 photos, and I cannot find them in, you know, by just looking around my hard drive anymore. It's not going to happen. Right. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So that's what I have for tonight. So now I would love to switch over to Andrea, and Andrea, show us and tell us some cool stuff about Anderson Ranch.
Well, okay, I'm going to screen share, and I'm new to Google+, so just bear with me.
Yes, welcome to Google+, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ranch. Let's see. That's not working. Okay, hold on.
You're going to click that big screen share button at the top first.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And
Is this
see it.
working? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Anderson Ranch, and actually it's kind of a funny story because the first time I ever came to Anderson Ranch was when Jan was working there as an intern when we were in graduate school together. So it's kind of funny, you know, what is it, like 14 years later, Jan, that now I'm running the photo area. But this is our website, andersonranch.org, and we also have a blog, andersonranch.org /blog. And the ranch is located about 8 miles outside of Aspen, Colorado, and we sit on 5 acres. And we are coming up on our 40th anniversary. And the ranch itself formerly was a working sheep ranch, turn of the century. And so we have a lot of the original buildings, the barns, the ranch house. This is our meeting hall. So basically it's a place where we really celebrate artists in all disciplines. So in addition to photography, we run workshops in the summer in ceramics and painting and printmaking, sculpture, woodworking. And so we basically are a place where students will come and actually stay at the ranch for a week. And if you look at this picture here, in the back, this is our cafe where all students have all their meals. And in the back is our dorm. So we have a dorm, and students can stay there, have all of their meals prepared for them in the cafe, and actually really immerse themselves in the workshop experience, where we really try to offer classes, specifically talking about photography, at all levels and in a variety of genres. So I'll just show a little bit more. The classes are small. They're generally 10 to 12 students. We have an instructor and a teaching assistant in each class. This is actually a funny picture I took this week. I taught a digital SLR class, and these are my... And this is a little bit more of a view of the ranch. We have a volleyball court, so that's kind of the thing after the workshops are over that everyone plays. But the workshops run 5 days to 10 days, and they include demonstrations. They include, we bring in a lot of visiting artists and special lecturers. The faculty show their work, and photography or new media, digital media together. This is actually a view of the ranch in the winter, which is a really different landscape. And so this is a photo class. We're right in the Rocky Mountains, so we have a lot of pretty amazing locales to go to photograph. And this is a place on Independence Pass. It's called the Ice Caves. And so we send our students out there to photograph, for beginning classes and also for landscape classes. This is actually me with some students last week at Maroon Bells. And so it was a little chilly, as you can see. We had our hats on. But it was amazing. And actually, when we were photographing, we actually saw a bear, which was kind of exciting, especially for the students from New York or from the city.
Yeah, it's always exciting to see wildlife.
Yeah, that was exciting for all of us. And then, we also run classes in video, in physical computing, generative art. So the photography kind of runs the whole realm into what would be considered more digital media or new media. We have lighting classes, so we go on location with models, depending on the faculty, and photograph there. This is Phil Borches. He's a documentary photographer. He ran a class last summer doing environmental portraiture. This is actually me. I look a little like a statue, but this was in our digital lab. We have 3 workspaces, so we often run 3 classes at the same time. We're all Macs, and we have always the latest software. We have a pretty amazing facilities. We have 2 Mac labs. We have a digital workspace that's kind of a flexible space, so we can do interdisciplinary or multimedia classes. We have a lighting studio, and we run classes in strobe lighting and speed lights, and so we really try to touch all areas of photography. We have a critique space for each class. The more advanced classes will often be more critique-based or conceptually based, where the beginning classes offer more technical expertise, and this is a lighting class with Phil. So this is Abba, who was teaching a Final Cut Pro class last year.
Abba Shapiro?
Abba Shapiro. Did you see that, Jan? Yeah. With lynda.com, right. We offer teen classes. This is some teens who are learning about lighting, and so we really try to support all age groups. And then I'm just going to quickly go through. These are some of the people that are coming in this summer. David Hilliard is teaching constructing and deconstructing photographic portrait. Douglas Hawley is doing a publishing your photo book using Adobe InDesign and Blurb, Booksmart software.
Wait a minute.
These are few.
You got to go slower because it's not keeping up.
Sorry.
Your images
Sorry,
are a bit
thank you
lagged.
for letting me know that. How am I okay
You're
now?
caught up.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Alan Burnback. He is a commercial photographer, does a lot of editorial work, and he's doing a lighting class using strobe lighting in the studio and on location, including speed lights. Arno Minkinen is a fine art landscape photographer and does a lot of self-portraits, and he's doing a class that's a little bit more open called Taking Charge of Your Vision. He's also doing it with a digital printer named Jonathan Singer, who runs Singer Editions in Boston. So this is kind of a nice class because you have a photographer teaching photography and a digital printer really teaching a digital workflow. Greg Miller is a New York-based photographer. He's doing a class in color photography. Am I caught up? Ed Cashy is a photojournalist, and he's doing a class in visual storytelling and documentary photography. So it's really a big range of classes. Alex Webb and Rebecca Norris Webb are also doing a documentary class. Alex is a Magnum photographer, really photographs all over the world, and so we're really excited that these people will come and actually work with our students. So, and I'll just quickly tell you a couple of things. We also have photo field expeditions. I actually just got back from Ireland with a group of students, which was really fantastic, 10 days on the Dingle Peninsula, and then we're going to France in September. But these are some of the images that we shot when we were in Ireland. We took a boat out 9 miles off the coast to a 1,500-year-old monastery. This is actually my son. His umbrella broke in the Killarney National Forest. And so this is actually one of the students. You can kind of see him on the left side of the screen photographing on the Dingle Peninsula. So we really offer, this is me doing a demonstration about lighting. And so I think what's great about the ranch is it's just such a community, and you really get a lot of individual attention. This was me doing a lighting exercise. And so, Jen, maybe, I don't know if you have anything to add, because I know Jan has been there as an instructor as well, so Jan teaches here from time to time, but it's just a really special place, and it's an opportunity to really immerse yourself, and we really celebrate all skill levels. We don't think about, I'm just going to get out of this so I can.
Now, it really, I don't know how to emphasize what a magical place it is and what an amazing experience it is to spend a week at Anderson Ranch, because, I used to go there before I taught there, when I was just a regular person, I used to save up all year and go take a workshop for a week. And one of the things there were a bunch of things I loved. Number one was getting to study with amazing people that, honest to God, I couldn't believe it was them. For example, I don't know if you guys know who Jerry Olsman is, who was doing composites in the darkroom way before there was Photoshop. And, his wife, Maggie Taylor, who in herself is a great Photoshop composite artist. I took a class with National Geographic photographers. Annie Griffiths Bell is one. And Chris Rainier, oh my God, Chris Rainier does these amazing photos, and he's just right there, and he's sharing all of his knowledge and skill, and just being there with you, and not only just teaching in a class situation, but hanging out with you.
Having lunch with them, having breakfast with them, sitting after the workshop and sitting on the porch and talking about the day. Yeah, I agree, Jen. It's just, and we have a wall here in the photo building. It's kind of called the Who's Who. And it seems like, for me, I was so excited when I got here, because as I look at the wall of people who have been through the ranch teaching, it's the who's who in photography over the last 40 years. So it's pretty exciting. It's an exciting place.
Remember, Andrea, you were mentioning that there was, they used to get celebrities in there and teach them Photoshop, like early on when Photoshop first came out?
Well, the first digital class we ran at Anderson Ranch was taught by Russell Brown, and it was taught to a small group of celebrities, including Dennis Hopper and the Starn Twins. Who are fine artists in New York. So, and we have some pictures of that. And it's kind of funny to think Dennis Hopper was in the studio downstairs.
Wait a minute. Do you guys know Dennis Hopper? Are you too young?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, just a little aside, but we had Cindy Sherman and David Byrne here a few years ago, and we talked on Final Cut Pro. So.
Wow. But the cool thing about Anderson Ranch, it sounds like all snotty when you say that stuff. It's not snotty. It's totally unsnotty.
I love that. It's not snotty.
It's not snotty at all. And that we don't want to be known as snotty.
It snotty. It's weird. Is it just me?
Who goes there? I mean, how do you
Everyone.
go? Okay.
You could go there. I mean, we get everyone, I'd say 60% of our students are retired, maybe people who are just really getting into photography as a hobby, and they're interested in learning more at a beginning level or an intermediate level. We have undergraduate students, graduate students, working professionals, working artists who come, teachers, professors who come to learn more software, more technique, and to study with really when I'm programming, like I'm programming now for next summer, I really look to invite really the top photographers in their field, the top of the top, who are not only good photographers but good teachers, and that's what we're about. It's important for us that our students have a really good experience, both learning skills and talking about content and taking risks. It's a place where we really try to explore and encourage students to experiment and take risks, and it's a really supportive environment to do that.
Yeah, I think I was just going to interject, because that's part of what I really liked about when I was looking at the Anderson Ranch information, because we hadn't met before talking about coming onto the show. Jan knew you, but I didn't. And I was looking at the blog, and I became quickly aware about how much you're focused on creating new inspiration and building creativity into people and really encouraging that artistic side to come out, which is something I mean, I'm all for that completely. And it's not just photography that you offer, but a whole range of arts. Is that right?
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, as the ranch, you know, kind of the mission statement for the ranch is that we celebrate artists, we celebrate art making, we celebrate community, and we celebrate critical dialogue. And this happens in the studios, it happens during dinner, it happens at breakfast, it happens on the volleyball court, it happens in the public lectures and events, gallery openings, all these kinds of things that are going on simultaneously. And at dinner, you're sitting with photographers, you're sitting with painters who are there taking a workshop, you might have a conversation with a ceramicist, you may be talking about printmaking. So there's all these mediums that are happening, you know, and intermingling, and so the conversation is really rich.
Yeah. On Google Plus, we have this format, Hangouts, and the people that are here in the panel can share with you their regular Hangout afiancados, or whatever you call them, pros. They'll tell you that there's a very similar experience happening on Google Plus right now, where people get together, not in a formal setting like we have, but in a very casual setting, and their creativity, the amount of sharing that's happening, the crossing of genres, not just photography, but into art, into music, into writing, has been happening here at a rate that is just mind-blowing. And I know you, Mel, and you, Isabelle, could attest to that as well.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. It's like family.
Mm-hmm.
Closeness you feel when you share, and it becomes like a second family, and people feel like they really know you. And I haven't really met anybody live. I know you've been on photo walks, and I have not met anybody live, but I mean, I would just imagine running and hugging and just feeling like I've known somebody forever if I would have this occasion to actually.
You would. It does happen. I've had that experience. It's amazing to meet all the, like, many of the people that I've met just here and never in person, and joining together on a large photo walk and just immediately connecting with all those people. It's a wonderful feeling.
It's like longtime friends without, you know, the whole experience of getting to know each other. It's online, but it's very personal.
So I would love that experience in a ranch setting where you have that time, not just an hour here or an hour there, but you're there for the whole week or 10 days or whatever you've booked to be immersed into that culture. That would be just a fantastic experience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think people always say it's life-changing, and that sounds really kind of cliched, but Jan could probably, I mean, Jan's been on every end. She's been an assistant here, she's been a student here, and she's been an instructor here. And I think it's also that time of a week where you have no other distractions. You don't have to walk the dog. You don't have to get home to make dinner. You don't even have to cook for yourself, you know, so you can just be in the studios, get your food, and then get right back to the studios. Or we're also, you know, in the Rocky Mountains, so some people choose to, in the evenings, go for a walk, go for a hike. I mean, there's just so many opportunities.
Well, I really can say it changed my life. It changed my life several times, in fact. You know, I think I've said on this show before, I wasn't always into photography. I was a lawyer, God forbid. And yet I had this creative, I don't know, yearning or something. And going to Anderson Ranch and having the permission to do that for a week without the lawyer stuff, you know,
yeah.
just letting that part of my brain just flower and blossom. And as Andrea said, this is before I knew her. This is just something I ran into on my own somewhere, and it wasn't very far from where I live in Boulder, so it was doable. But yet there were people from all over the world. It wasn't just that. So that encouraged me to, you know, start getting into photography, being at the ranch and experiencing that several times. And then, by some miracle, after grad school, I got this like an internship at Anderson Ranch.
I remember.
And it was like, you know, there I was, and believe me, I was old by then, but there I was down with the 20-year-olds on my hands and knees, cleaning the floor, cleaning the toilet. But it was great because also, in addition to that, I got to assist in every single workshop that summer. And I think that was, maybe it was 2004 or 5 or no, it was earlier.
No, it was 98.
It was 99.
Yeah.
It was 99. and digital art was just kind of coming in, you know, and we still had dark rooms, like traditional wet dark rooms at Anderson Ranch. There were some computers, but, you know, everything was still a struggle in the digital world. And so I knew a little bit about it already because I liked it. So I got to assist all those classes and just, you know, week after week with these amazing people who were they were the pioneers in the digital world at the time. And one of those people was, guess who? Linda Weinman.
Oh,
Lynda.com.
yeah. Lynda.com.
Yes.
And there went my life in another direction after that.
That's true.
Yeah.
True.
So these kinds of experiences, you know, they can have real-world consequences, even to the extent of networking. You know, it's how you find what you're going to do next by meeting people and interacting with them.
Well, and I think people talk about that being at the ranch, you know, they really end up with the students in their class have become such a tight-knit group usually by the end of the week. They form these lifelong relationships with the other students.
Now, how big are the groups? Are they large groups? Is it many groups that actually meet together and dine together of, you know, different fields, or?
The groups are small. I mean, it's a small ratio, so we generally only have up 10 or 12 students in a class.
Okay.
And the students will all be, you know, at the same skill level. So we offer workshops that are beginning photography, intermediate, and advanced. And so, well, students will self-select what, you know, where they think they belong in terms of what their interests are and what their skill level is. And so, so everyone sort of moves along at the same pace.
That's great.
So, Andrea, you know, maybe you can tell us a little more about the ranch later, but I want to be sure to have time to take a look at some of your photos.
Yes.
Before
Okay.
we're done with this hour.
I'd love to see pictures.
Okay, I was just going to show you a couple of 3 or 4 different projects, and I'll just kind of go through them and talk a little bit about the work in each project.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do that now. Okay.
Yeah. Do your screen share desktop.
So Andrea's background is in fine art photography, and you know, I was there when she was getting her graduate education, so I can tell you the emphasis was on conceptual, you know, so that it's not just about skill or making a beautiful photo, it's about having a concept behind it, like a reason, or trying to tell a story or say something with your photographs.
This first project I'll show you is called Indian Springs, and is the image up? Is everything okay?
Yeah, you're doing
that
fine.
looks great. Okay. Basically, I shoot with a 4x5 view camera, and a lot of the work that I do is portrait-based, and it involves exploring a place. And the way I explore a place often is by photographing the people that inhabit that space. And Indian Springs is a hot springs, which is located in Idaho Springs, Colorado. And I kept seeing the billboards on the side of the road, and I thought, what is this place? And so I decided to go and see it, and the way I was able to sort of study it, but if you will, was by making portraits of the bathers. And this is Hank. And if you note, too, what's kind of interesting to me, the project became about, I'm going to go to the next image. The project became about these images of these bathers. And I started in black and white with that first image of Hank, and I quickly moved into color because I realized that the place was really about color. It was this intense color of the bright colored bathing suits. Indian Springs was originally a sacred place for the Ute Native Americans, and over time, as they were pushed out, it became kind of a weekend getaway place for people in Denver at the in the early 20th century. And over time, it's evolved to become really a swimming pool. It's a 250,000-gallon concrete swimming pool with a hot, with a kind of a pipe where the hot water comes in, and people who visit can enjoy the different pools, different temperature pools. And so this is Andrea and Katie. And what was interesting about this place, too, is that I was interested in the fact that it had been transformed from this sort of natural hot springs in the river to have this dome that's covering the pool where they kind of grow botanical plants, which is very green. So I was just interested in exploring these portraits, how people present themselves to the camera, body language, and this idea of, you know, place and bathers. This is Chelsea.
And Andrea, isn't it kind of a strange, there's something weird about this place, isn't there?
Well, I think what's interesting about it is that it's like many other tourist attractions around the Southwest that originally were often had some kind of historical significance.
Uh-oh.
We might have lost you.
I hope not.
And then they become transformed to often the tourist attraction. And so this place is called Indian Springs. There's really nothing much Indian about it. And there's nothing much natural. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So I don't know where I broke up, but it's kind of a different place. Okay. This is Dwayne. And so what I do is when I went there, I got permission to go in with a large format camera. I set it up in one end of the pool, which is away from the pool, because the owner said, you know, they would allow me permission as long as I didn't photograph people that didn't want to be photographed in the pool. So I invite people to come over and actually pose. And I'm pretty thoughtful about the composition. And you know, to shoot a 4x5 portrait, it takes 15 or 20 minutes with, you know, focusing and shooting a couple of Polaroids to check the focus and to check the exposure. And what I'm also looking at, a lot of these images, if you see, I focus on the eyes, and the eyes are sharp, and a lot of the rest kind of falls out of focus. And I'm really drawn to that sense of softness.
I like that too.
And this woman is actually from Boulder. And what's funny, too, is these prints are large. They're 40 by 60 inches.
Wow.
So in the gallery, they're much larger than life. And she bought this one for her home, and she hung it up over her sofa in the living room.
Great.
But, I mean, I was really drawn to her. She's interesting. She's wearing a wig. She's got red fingernail polish, red lipstick. I'm interested into the red little flowers that are actually plastic flowers, by the way, that are put onto these plants in the background.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Andrea, I never
Dominique.
told you this, but I have seen that woman in Boulder. She comes to the
I know you have, Jen.
Wow.
Jen, she used to work in the lunchroom at CU Boulder when we were in graduate school there.
Oh, my God. Right.
Yes. This is Woody. And, you know, I was interested in his freckles. I mean, I saw him when he came in, and I saw the freckles, I saw the arms, and I thought, I want to photograph him against the texture of the pool, because I saw it was a similar kind of speckled kind of pattern. This is Brooke and Shelby, and there's a mud room there, and you can pay to cover yourself in mud. So this is Sarah and her little sister, who's behind her. This is John. And so I spend, you know, a half an hour or so with these folks and make a portrait. I give them a Polaroid. And, you know, of course, when the show is exhibited, I let them know about it. These are sisters from Colorado Springs. And, you know, I'm interested in bodies, in body language, and how they're standing, and how one's looking away, one's making eye contact with the camera. I'm interested in the bruise on her arm. Just sort of these narratives that can sort of get built in your head about the stories about who these people are and who they are in relation to ourselves.
Yeah.
This is Katie. It's about connection, and it's about also a disconnect as well. This is Laurel. This is Hans and Marlis, and this is like kind of exactly what I'm talking about with body language. I mean, you know, he's sort of letting it all hang out, and Marlis is tucking her tummy in. He has, you know, scotch tape on his glasses. She's sort of posing. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting in terms of connection. This is Katie. And this is Eileen and Izzy. And these are grandmother and granddaughter. So I'll just keep going, and then if you have questions, I can answer them. This is another project I did on Eagle Scouts, and I was interested in, I've been looking at a lot of Renaissance art and paintings, and looking at how a lot of young boys were always depicted in full military prowess, even though they weren't necessarily in the military. And so I decided to make portraits of Eagle Scouts who kind of reference Renaissance paintings. And so I photographed them in a similar three-quarter view with a red velvet backdrop. And I was just trying to sort of make reference to those paintings that I had been looking at, and to sort of the military overtones of scouting. And this is David. Actually, I'm sorry, this is Michael. And I was interested in these young boys who are really pretty successful because they've achieved the highest rank in scouting in a very short time. This is Kieran. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm kind of going quickly. I don't want to go too fast. Okay.
We got a few minutes.
So more recently, I just started doing a series over the last couple of years of portraits of faces. And again, it's sort of this history of my connection to photography, looking at a lot of photography as a child. My mother had a lot of photo books. She was a hobbyist, and I was always looking at portraits, and the questions I always thought about were, who is this person, and who is this person in relation to me, and I want to study their face, and so I started doing these really up and close portraits, and they're large. They're again like 30 by 40, and it's like we can look at these faces and we can get closer than we ever could in person. Stare longer, look longer, study longer. This is one of the artists, photographers who came through the ranch. His name is Robert Park Harrison. This is Rob.
Yeah, I have a question for you in regards to portraiture. Part of what I do, I'm kind of a split personality, but I do weddings and events. And I don't like to overpose, but my question to you when you're shooting portraiture is, how much of yourself do you get in the way, like as far as posing or encouraging goes? Or do you try and
I really construct the images that I'm making, and I always think about this critical theorist about photography. His name is Roland Barthes, and he talks about how when a person is being photographed, the person is actually like four people at the same time, and it's the person that they think they are, it's the person they present to the camera, it's the person the photographer thinks they are or wants to present to the camera, and it's also the person that the viewer thinks they are. And so with that said, I do a lot of posing, and I guess I'm looking for an intensity in the images. And that has a lot to do too with, this construction of how I'm using the depth of field, and like especially here on this image of Mariana,
yeah,
where the only thing really sharp are her eyes, and everything else goes soft, because I'm really trying to sort of connect in that area. This is Roddy. Jan knows Roddy. And this is my son.
We'll be seeing Roddy, right?
Bo. You will, in a couple of weeks, I think.
That's horrible, yeah.
And this is Carl. And these last two images here are just a little bit of new work I just started, and these are images, triptychs I've been making, and I'm sort of exploring this idea of memory and landscape, and how we sort of move through the landscape, and sort of what the traces of humans moving through the landscape, and so this is the second image I made, and this is the first one. So the images, the landscape is very stark,
yeah,
and I have usually a figure that's just moving through. I guess I think about a lot about the landscape and the history of the landscape and how, you know, we move land from one generation to another, or, you know, what is this land now, and I own it or something, and the history of my family on it, and then another time it'll be somebody else's. And so this idea of traces.
Now,
So
I was going to ask you, do you ever feel the need to write with your images, or include words, or poetry, or just any kind of, I don't even know the word that I'm looking for, but just do you ever feel as an artist a need to inject words into your work, or do you just want to speak on its own?
You know, I look kind of blurry here. Sorry, I don't know if it's
okay. You'll sharpen up the screen.
Okay. I don't. You know, generally the work is my work is usually exhibited, you know, in a gallery setting, and there'll be an artist statement or something to contextualize it. But I generally don't. Usually, when I feel like I need more words to talk about it, I've moved into film or video, where I actually have sound and people actually. I've done some documentary films where I've sort of moved into that, and where I feel like I need more of a voice.
But you know what, Andrea? It's really great to hear you talk about the photos. I haven't heard this in all the years. I've seen them a lot, but it's different to hear you talk about them. It does give them context. It makes them almost more interesting for me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, thank you for doing. I know it's not like in grad school. I felt like there was this real push not to talk about your images and not to have text or explanation, and just to put them out there and let the viewer bring their experience to the photos, and therefore interpret them. But gosh, I really like hearing about them. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing about them too. Understanding your motivation is helpful as an artist myself.
Yeah. And you know, and Andrea, I just have to say, your work is so cool. You look at it when it's a portrait, or it's one person in a field, or it's something, it's a very, you know, simple almost image, but spending 5 seconds thinking about it, it becomes something else. And then you think about it just a little more, and it becomes something bigger and bigger, and it just keeps growing right in front of you. When it's one image, and it's a portrait, but it really grows. So hearing you talk about it just gave it so much more than what I would already stop and think about when seeing it. But it's just a lot. You know, that doesn't happen with a lot of artists. I mean, it takes a lot. You know, I don't know, but I think you know. You know what I'm trying to say.
I completely understood you.
It was the fastest hour I ever spent.
Yeah, I know.
Extra one.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, you know what I really appreciate about Andrea, and I can say this, don't get a big head, is like you are you're multifaceted in this way, that you are a true artist. On the other hand, you've just stepped up to the plate for this art administration thing, and you're so good at it. You've got that place shipshape, and it's fun and interesting. So congrats, really.
Thanks, Jan. Thank you. And thanks for having me on this.
Yeah. So, Ron, do we have to get off for a while and then come back, or how we do that?
No, we have plenty of time now with the on-air hangouts. I'll just have to clip it for the recording, but we can stay on for the on-air. But let's just say an official goodbye, and then we'll stay on and we'll do a bit of an after show and just gab about whatever, either Andrea's work or just whatever you want to talk about.
Well, if we do an after show, I actually have one more project I was going to show. I just didn't want to run out of time.
Oh, great. Then show it first as soon as we finish saying our goodbyes.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to thank everybody who is down in the panel tonight. This is one of my favorite shows that we've had, and it's just been great to meet you guys that I didn't already know, and to have my friends back with me. And I wanted to remind everybody that we meet here on Tuesday nights every other week. We have an amazing lineup of guests planned for the rest of the summer, including photographer John Paul Caponegro. Who else do we have? Oh, we have photographer Roddy McInnes. Who else, Ron? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, you're asking me to think real fast. I can't do it.
Well, believe me, it's going to be great all summer long and hopefully into the fall as well. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye officially, but we will still be here for people who want to hear us talk some more for the after show. We'll be live, and thanks for joining us for the Photoshop show.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.